There are several small wars right now, and historically, small wars often turn into big wars eventually. If you look back at 1912 or a few previous times in history, these things have a habit of expanding and erupting. I hope not. Certainly, I hope not this time, but it has happened historically. We've had bear markets for thousands of years, and I guess I live long enough to hope I live long enough to see many bear markets, because they always come, whether we like it or not. Politicians sometimes say, "Oh, we've done away with bear markets." Don't believe them. We will always and have always had bear markets. As I look at the world now, I see a lot of small wars. Historically, small wars have a habit of turning into big wars. Let's hope it doesn't happen this time, but it always has. Situations around the world now, and if it develops as history shows it will, leading to a big war sometime in the next year, 2, 3 years. I don't know when. I don't know where, but I know it has happened. Now, stock markets and nearly all markets around the world are very happy right now. Many of them are making all-time highs, and that's because central banks have and are printing a lot of money. And when there's a lot of money printing, people have a good time. You look at the Bank of Japan, it's staggering how much money they've printed and how much they've spent and borrowed. Likewise, the central bank in the United States, everybody's doing it. So there are a lot of good feelings at the moment, but history shows that when everybody's having a good time, it's time to start thinking about, hey, wait a minute, is this going to ever come to an end? And it probably will. I have a lot of cash, and I have a lot of cash in U.S. dollars at the moment. I'm not selling short, not yet, because I don't see the hysteria that you usually see at the top. It's developing, but I don't think I see hysteria yet, so I'm not selling short. I'm just sitting here in cash, mainly in U.S. dollars, because history shows that when people are panicked, they turn to the U.S. dollar as a safe haven. It's not a real safe haven anymore, because the U.S. is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. But people still think it's a safe haven, so what I suspect will happen, when problems come again, people will jump in the U.S. dollar for safety. It will make a peak. I hope I'm smart enough to sell that peak if it happens that way, because the U.S. dollar is very flawed. It's unbelievable, the debts in the U.S., and it's unbelievable the way they keep increasing the debts. They think there's no problem. Timing the end of a 100-year cycle is pretty difficult, at least for me it is. I see the signs are developing. Many people put nearly all of their money in U.S. dollars. It's becoming more and more of a safe haven in people's minds. But the facts are the U.S. is a huge debtor nation, and the debts are getting higher every day. That has never led to good things. In the end, if a nation becomes a huge debtor, it ultimately leads to problems. Yes, I own a lot of U.S. dollars at the moment because I expect people to turn to the U.S. dollar in terms of turmoil if it comes again, and the dollar will go higher and I'll have to sell it. But I don't know where I'm going to put the money then. If you know, please don't announce it. Send me an email. Send me a private email, because I'm trying to figure out where to put the money next. Which currency, if there's another currency, and I haven't found it yet. In theory, it should be the Chinese renminbi, but the renminbi is not a convertible currency. So it cannot be the currency that's not convertible. That can never be the world's international medium of exchange. So I haven't found it yet. I am looking, as I say. Every currency I look at has its own peculiar problems. Someday we're going to have to get out of U.S. dollars, but I don't know where to go yet. And I certainly own some gold and I own some silver, but they are not going to be the international currency. There's nothing that's quite that bad at the moment. I mean, agriculture is certainly not popular. Nobody wants to be a farmer these days, which means we should probably all be farmers. But no, I don't. I mean, silver has been down. Gold's making all-time highs, but silver's still down 40 or 45% from its all-time high. It's been moving recently, but silver, I guess, silver is certainly one of the perhaps undervalued commodities that I see in the world, and most agricultural products are somewhat neglected. I'm talking about things that people produce and trade. Corn, wheat, cotton, these are the things that there are futures markets in. There's no future, I don't think there's a futures market in potash, at least there hasn't been that I know of. I think most people know that the U.S. dollar has serious problems. We are the largest debtor nation in the world, to repeat myself. I'm not the only one who knows that, and the debts keep going up every day, every week, every month. So many central banks are starting to notice that. Also, Washington recently, in recent years, has started saying if they don't like you, they put sanctions on you, they won't let you use the U.S. dollar. Well, even our friends are saying, wait a minute, they could do that to us too. So many people, including our friends, are starting to look for a competitor to the dollar in case something happens. And they should. We all should. I am. And then I'm an American. But I have not found yet the place to go that the world is going to go to. Central banks are increasing their holdings of gold because historically, for thousands of years, gold and silver have been places to put money as a refuge. Well, again, I'm not the only one who knows that. Many central banks are starting to increase their holdings of gold because they know that if the U.S. gets angry at them, they're going to have a problem. That's certainly the way Washington is thinking, and what they're trying to do. They want to make sure that everybody knows that the U.S. is in charge, and they better do what the U.S. says. Yeah, that's their plan. But as I say, some people are starting to say, wait a minute, that could happen to us, and we have to find an alternative, because if it happens to us, what are we going to do? Nobody wants to be stuck with all of their money frozen and unable to do any kind of commerce. Nobody wants to be in that situation. And Washington's recent actions make many people, including our friends, say, we have to be prepared in case. Well, in 1924, Britain was the number one country in the world, the richest, most powerful. I mean, they're still there. It's 100 years later. They had gigantic problems along the way. They went bankrupt at one point, but still, they're still there, and there's still a lot of people having great success in making money. So the U.S. is not going to disappear overnight, I assure you. Nobody ever has. No country that has lost the pinnacle has dropped, unless they lost a war or something, has dropped immediately. The U.S. is not going to drop immediately, don't worry. And the U.S. dollar is not going to drop immediately. Even as people move away from the dollar, and I'm trying to figure out where to go myself, I don't know where they're going to go. So the U.S. dollar won't disappear overnight, don't worry. I'm looking at China because China is depressed. China is not going to disappear. I haven't found anything recently. Uzbekistan, I've been buying shares in Uzbekistan. Not too many, but I'm hoping to buy more in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, a few hundred years ago was one of the most successful and powerful countries in the world. The communists ruined Uzbekistan, but now there are different people trying to change Uzbekistan, and it has vast resources of many kinds. But other than Uzbekistan and perhaps China, many stock markets are near all-time highs. And when that happens, I anyway don't particularly like jumping into markets at all-time highs. And everybody's having a good time. The U.S. has gone the longest period in American history without a big bear market. That doesn't mean it's going to have a bear market soon, but we always have. After such a long time, we have had bear markets, and we will probably have them again. Argentina is a country that has a lot of resources. The only worry, I've seen this happen several times in Argentina. If you've gone back 100, 150 years ago, Argentina was, if a European was thinking about going to the Western Hemisphere, they were trying to decide between the U.S. and Argentina. Those were the two choices. Those were the two great potential success stories. Obviously, the small ones went to the U.S., because Argentina has gone bankrupt a few times in the intervening times, but Argentina has had some great success at times. There was a time that if you were in Europe and somebody walked into a restaurant or something, people would say, there's a rich Argentine, because they were that well known and that successful. Unfortunately, they often then went the other way.